Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Oscar Ugaz, and I am going to be your host this afternoon. It's nice to see so many familiar faces in the room. Some ideas to get some common ground, okay? A few years ago, many football clubs were managing digital as business as usual, okay? There were corporate web portals to redesign and launch, or maybe there are emails that need a revision. If you were really cutting edge, maybe you were working in a web mobile version for some of those black and white mobile phones that we used to have. To develop these projects, teams were put in place. Communications, marketing, and IT gather in long meetings to reach agreements, define specifications, and plan deployments. But one day, in those meetings, some people start dropping some really freaky ideas. They start talking about forums, blogs, and some obscure new web services created at university dorms. They talk about comments in the official website and fans using the club intellectual property to produce a blurry thing called user-generated content. They talk about the digital conversation that is happening and that the club needs to embrace it to maximize the fan experience and start being relevant. The reaction of the executives at those meetings were the usual ones that you find in a mature organization when it confronts innovation. There was fear, deny, and sometimes condescent. After billions of followers, likes, tweets, hashtags, and Instagram pictures, football is still being relevant. But here we are, a group of football experts and executives sitting in this room for a social media masterclass at Socerex. There is still some fear, deny, and condescent, but the discussion has evolved. Today, we have embraced these new platforms and the realities they produce, and we understand that the conversation is enormous and that the attention of our fans online is limited. Of course, they are still very passionate about football, but there are hundreds of other attractive, entertaining, interactive, and appealing things just a click away, and time and attention is scarce. Today, the discussion is about how to go deep in that conversation and engage those fans, how to join them and keep them interested in our content and events, and also in the content and events of the companies who pay us big sums of money to partner with us. The gentlemen and companies that join us today are experts in that field. They know about the dynamics, techniques, contents, and behaviors that wire football with social media, and they are going to share that with us. So let's start. Our first company is a very well-known player. Founded in 2006, it was one of those obscure social media platforms that we mentioned before. It's not that anymore. With 300 million monthly active users and 1 billion tweets sent every 2 days, Twitter is more than an impressive engagement machine. It has also reshaped the way in which organizations, brands, and public figures react to the speed and change and pace of culture. A couple of examples. In 2014, more than 670 million tweets were created around the World Cup. Not only that, during the tournament, we saw innovative approaches from brands pushing real-time communications via multitasking teams of more than 60 people. Most of those efforts focus on Twitter. To talk about this and more, we have Alex Trickett. Alex is head of sponsor for Twitter UK, where he helps clubs, players, and sponsors to use Vine, Periscope, and Twitter itself to bring football fans closer to the action. Before joining Twitter, Alex worked for several digital agencies and developed an extensive and interesting career at the BBC. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Alex Trickett.
Thanks, sir. Sir, thank you. Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming. When I was invited to talk here, it felt like a very good fit because, you know, we're talking about bringing football communities together, bringing the world of football together, and that's what Twitter does on a daily basis. I'm often asked, you know, my challenge is I want to grow reach, I want to deepen engagement. How do I do that? I think the answer to that on Twitter is by bringing football fans and the football world closer together. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. We have 1 billion tweets on our platform every 2 days. That's a lot of tweets. And a huge percentage of those actually are about football. We know, talking about the UK, that 2/3 of people who are on Twitter do something to do with football on our platform. They love to talk about football just as anyone in the pub likes to talk about football. It's a huge currency on Twitter. And we know that when the moment happens, you know this from watching football matches, there are catalyst moments. There are moments where people are up off their sofa celebrating or in tears potentially if it's gone the other way. That's when people reach for Twitter. And this is a little demonstration from the World Cup. You'll recognise the scene. This is Neymar's penalty against Chile. The blue line is tweets, and you'll see a surge. A bit more sound. Sorry, there should be sound. You're not hearing it, right? So you get the idea. You know, when those moments happen, Brazil scoring the penalty that puts the pressure on Chile, Chile missing the penalty that puts them out of the World Cup, the conversation spikes on Twitter. And I guess, you know, what I'm here to talk to you about is how do you take advantage of those moments? Here it is, 81% of users say that they tweet or follow tweets while watching sport on TV. TV and sport go really well together. TV, sport and Twitter go even better together. And 65% say that Twitter makes live sporting events on TV more exciting. How do you take advantage of that moment? How do you place your team, your organisation, your brand, yourself in the middle of that and grow your engagement? And the answer is, at least in my mind, 5 key tactics, and I want to talk through them with you, share a few examples that bring them to life. The first of them is break news. We'll go into that in more detail, but Twitter is a breaking news platform. How do you take advantage of that? Rich media, talk about that more. Amplifying yourself while valuing others, that's crucial. And also exclusive access, which is something that we quite often take for granted. The breaking news one first. We know that things happen on Twitter first. People, you know, when there's news to break, come to Twitter to break it. And therefore for you, if as a club or as an individual, you have news to break it effectively on Twitter and you'll reap the benefits. One example, this is from the FA, and wind back into 2014, just before the Football World Cup. And the FA, well established on Twitter, but they have a new handle that they've grown because they want to split out the FA as an organisation that looks after the governance of the game, and the FA that's a cheerleader for our national teams. And so At England is born, and that's the cheerleading account. It allows them to be a bit more expressive, emotive, passionate. But it's got no followers because, like any other account, you start with 0, and that's the beauty of Twitter. You organically grow up from a small base to a very large one. The FA faced a challenge going into that World Cup. Look, we've got At England, it's got no followers. How do we do something about that quickly? And the answer for them, as for many, is break news well. And what news do people care about most going into a Football World Cup? Who's on the plane to Rio? They broke that news exclusively first on Twitter, and they got a good pickup from it. But by breaking it in a creative way, by breaking it with, you know, the pen picks of all the players, and also that call to action to follow us on at England to get the next updates, they also ensured that all the live blogs at that moment, all the newspapers, the broadcasters, of course there's only one thing they're talking about as well. They're talking about the breaking squad announcement. They've got a choice. Either we go and make our own graphic and we tell the story that way, or we use this one. It comes from the official source, it's ready to go. In this case, they use this one, they syndicate. So if you create news in a powerful way, in a visual way, you increase your chance of syndication, and that increases your reach. It's also about being powerful off Twitter as well as on Twitter. You know, you could be the best club in the world at doing stuff on Twitter. That doesn't count for much if no one's following you on Twitter, and if no one, you know, if your fans don't know that you're there. And this example, Man United, who are, you know, fast catching up to Arsenal and Chelsea, and you know, right at the forefront in terms of followers on Twitter. They were the last to join Twitter, and they realised early that the way we catch up, and it's hard to catch up, but the way they catch up is by breaking news. So they broke news of Juan Mata signing, but then they restate that in the press conference. You know, you see that hoarding underneath that says, look, if you're watching this, the next update, follow us at Man United. And if you're Spanish speaking, we've got you covered too, at Man United_ES. So you need to spell out, you need to tell people. You don't need to leave them guessing. You want to tell them where to find you. That's the breaking news bit. There's also such a thing as creating news and creating nice news stories, and that's done really effectively on Twitter because of its public, open, distributed nature. I just want to share this example. It's an oldie but a goodie. This guy, Rick Wee, you know, until a year and a bit ago, no one knew him. He was an Everton fan from Malaysia, just like many other fans from Everton dispersed around the world. Now, he'd never been to a game. He was really excited. Look, this is my moment. I'm going to go and watch Everton for the very first time. Flew over. As you can see, he got to the ground pretty early. There's not many other people there when he sent that tweet. You know, he's eager. However, the next tweet told a different story. If you can't read it, it says game called off. It was the only game that season that Everton had to move because of the weather. And that could have been the end of it, right? A sad fan anecdote, you know, like many others through the years. Except, as you can tell, there's space for a further update in this story. And what happened was that Everton, you know, they were joined up. They spotted this because they were watching their feeds, they were watching the conversation about their club. And they thought, well, let's do something about this. And they tweeted Rick Wee before he left the stadium, and they brought him back, and they introduced him to Martinez, the manager, Leighton Baines, the star player, and they gave him a money-can't-buy experience that, frankly, was better than seeing a game. And the beauty of that is that Rick Wee, as you can see in that photo, was a deliriously happy chappie. Better than that for Everton, the following day, Rick Wee came back and spent the whole day talking to the world's media about what a great fans club Everton are. So they'd created for themselves a lovely news story just by being alert and joined up between their digital and marketing teams. And these things will happen every day around sports clubs. It's about identifying the right opportunity and taking advantage. Another one, very quickly, that happened just after the general election result was known. And this was the Norwich versus Ipswich playoff semi-final match. Massive match for East Anglia, you know, it doesn't get bigger. And one fan watching, an Ipswich fan, punched the ceiling in delight when Ipswich equalised in that first game. And then he tweeted about it. And he didn't think anything of it, he just tweeted about it, and he included the goal scorer, Anderson. And he said, look, I lost my head, and this is the result. Broken hand, broken ceiling. Goal scorer Paul Anderson, he didn't need to, but he saw this and he thought, well, look, this is quite sweet. And he replied and said, look, I'll take care of it, mate. Tell me what the damage is, I'll pay. And then this conversation spiraled. The fan said, don't be silly, you deserve your bonus, etc., etc. I don't know how it played out. I don't know who paid for the repairs, but what I do know is that the next day, on the BBC website, most trending story was that story of a fan and a player having an innocent and honest conversation on Twitter. Number 2 story, who's in the new cabinet? You know, this is within 36 hours of a new government being set up. We care about Ipswich versus Norwich. We care about these people. So that's the news angle. There's loads more to it, but that gives you a snapshot. I now want to talk to you about rich media. You know, there was a time we set up in 2006, as Oscar pointed out. There was a time when Twitter was 140 characters, and it was really that. It was text. But now it's so much more than that. And it's more than that because there's opportunities to add media into every tweet. And we know this is effective. So if you add a photo into a tweet, we know that in the sports world, that gives you a 50% uplift in engagement. People want to see what you see. They want to be there. I don't want to talk too much about photos because I think you guys get that. They've been around for a long time. I do want to talk to you about the different ways that you can engage using video, because there are four main types on Twitter. And we know that 82% of people on Twitter engage using video. So it's a rich and fertile opportunity. The first area is Vine. It's been around a while. It's owned by Twitter. 6-second looping video, really effective for capturing that moment, that thing that people can scarcely believe that they want to see again. A few examples. The first one recently from Man City when they unveiled Raheem Sterling as their new signing. You know, they could have just said, look, this is his number. It's standard, that's what people do. But actually they decided to show it in the press of a shirt. And Man United had done this before. So, you know, you see there use of Vine to signal an iconic moment. The second one, it's a kit launch, which is always a big moment for fans and for clubs and for the commercial entities around the club. I like this one from French national rugby team, using the sort of cutaway stop motion that Vine gives you. Quite sweet, quite watchable, engaging, a way to launch a kit. And the third one, it's just celebration. You know, we all want to be in the room when our team wins a title. Vine can put you there. And this is Chelsea having won the league. Chelsea are one of the biggest on Vine, and it's because they capture that raw emotion. And it's, you know, it's a surefire winner, and it's very easy to do. Mobile video is worth talking about. So within a tweet now, just as you can upload a photo, you can upload a piece of video up to 30 seconds. And the beauty of that is the immediacy of that. It's not about high polished production quality stuff necessarily. It's about authenticity, being in a moment. And I think this example tells it really well. It comes from Mercedes, and Mercedes, as you know, they're at the top of their game in the most technical, precise, scientific sport there is, F1. And yet, the first view that any of their fans got of the new car this February was in this, which is a rough and ready mobile clip, which ends with a thumbprint smudging onto the camera. I'll play it, and then we can sort of discuss why it works. I like the futile dash after a 150-mile-an-hour car, only going to end one way. So look, it's rough, it's ready, but it's authentic, and it's engaging, and it's immediate. And of course it was followed by all that real high-end slick stuff that you'd expect from an F1 car launch. But the immediacy really resonated with fans. And I think, you know, for teams and for organisations, the beauty of this is that you've got a man on the ground, they've got a mobile phone, all they have to do is point and shoot. And then, you know, we can do all the slick high-end stuff too. So this is a recent example from Liverpool. And they were, you know, they were getting involved in a really good cause, which was the global goals thing. I don't know if you've seen it. Well, you'll catch a glimpse here. And the point here is that using video.twitter.com, you can upload all that really sort of high-end video that you've got produced. So that's not wasted either, and that will engage well. And this was just a clip from global goals. Basically, you spin around until you're dizzy and then try and take a penalty.
I'm almost already. And them birds are chirping. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh. Uh-oh. What happened to the bed? What happened to the bed?
Not as easy as it looks, evidently. The last type of video that I wanted to flag up is important, and it's also our most recent acquisition in the video world, and it's Periscope. For those that have not come across it yet, it's live. It's basically broadcast now, in the moment, direct. And a bit like, you know, the mobile video, it's rough and it's ready and it's raw and it's immediate. So don't think about production style linear TV. This is not the BBC production values applied into broadcast necessarily. What it is I've got something to say right now. I'm somewhere that you'll be interested in. Here it is. And with an additional layer to it, which I think is really powerful, which is the two-way conversation. Because as you'll see from this example, all the while you talk, people comment. And they may ask questions, and you may answer them. But they may also give you direction. You know, they might be saying, look, you're pointing the camera over there, but what I'm really interested in is over here. And that changes the way that we think about broadcast, because broadcast isn't just we make a director's decision and you put up with it and you enjoy it. This becomes something very different, and it can be really powerful around sport. So this is Federer doing the first ever Periscope from Wimbledon's account. A little excerpt from this.
We're at Wimbledon here, doing a Periscope from the ball boy and ball girl area, the new one that just opened up. And we're going to walk over to center court with CEO of Wimbledon, Richard Lewis.
Hi, everybody.
And hey, Leighton. I'm filming for Periscope. Let's see a big serve. There he goes. Is that an ace? There you go.
And he went on to take some questions when he got to centre court. And one of those questions was, you know, how's the grass looking? Rather than just telling people what the grass is doing, he picked up his phone and he put it on the ground and he showed people the grass. It's that immediacy and power that people have really embraced on Periscope. A couple of other examples, just to give you more of a flavour. Southampton, they adopted it within a week of it launching. And they thought, well, what's the perspective that fans want that they don't normally get? They want to be in the tunnel with the players, right? And that's what they did ahead of a Premier League match. And then the next one came off the back of the squad announcement for the England World Cup squad, and that had broken on Twitter. But they reinforced it very soon afterwards with this brilliant, I think, and authentic and engaging Periscope from Rowntree, one of the top coaches there. And he really enjoyed it. It was his sort of favourite media turn after the announcement, because it gave him that immediacy to fans.
What we got here, Mike Brown, Love Heart. Who's that from? KYz49Ru6lqE, I love Mike Brown as well. What's the training ratio for rugby and cardio? Well, rugby is cardio. We train very quickly, quicker than anyone I've ever known. And obviously with the guys wearing GPS and heart rate units, we can monitor how hard they're working. So we train quickly because the game is quick. Great selection of Slade, thanks for that. RF17302, not a bad choice, thanks for that. Why no Atwood? Yeah, that was a difficult decision, probably my hardest decision, because Dave is in the phenomenal shape of his life.
So all the while, he's just picking up comments on the fly and he's addressing them. Some of them a bit more jokey, some of them dead serious. Someone commented on his cauliflower ears at one point, and he had a nice bit of banter about that. Serious questions about why not selecting this player. Given a lot of consideration to that, he gets a chance to be transparent, to be open. And the last thing I wanted to point out on Periscope, but it applies to all of these video platforms really, is the power of personality, because that will shine through. If you're thinking about who to put on Periscope, think about those people who have a flair for presenting and an openness. Ian Wright has that, and I'll show you a bit more of what he was doing a bit later on, but he was in a car on the way to a game at Wembley, and he was talking about how in his playing days he used to sort of wind down the music just before he approached Wembley Stadium or Highbury, wherever it was, because he didn't want to be too sort of bouncing off the walls with the dance music he loves, so that when he got out the car and an autograph hunter came up to him, his eyes weren't bulging and he felt like an approachable person. Having said that, this tune came on.
Oh my God. Look at the volume.
He's literally taking us on a journey with him, and for the most part we want to go for the ride. I love the comment that passed. I don't know if you noticed as it went through. There was a comment that came up halfway through that said, "Can you let me out of the boot now, please, Ian?" I thought that was a particularly fine comment. So that's the rich media. Think about how to invigorate everything that you do and the playing atmosphere around your club or organisation, and to showcase that on Twitter using those video techniques. I want to talk a bit about amplification, because clearly, as it says on this picture here, we want to get more reach. We want to stand on our soapbox and be heard for the large part. And there are ways to attempt to do that. And frankly, I won't go into lots of detail because I think a lot of it's intuitive. If you're high profile, talk to other high profile people. This is Kobe, who was retweeting the game when he scored 81 points. It was a record-breaking performance. And he watches the game again and he tweets along, so you get that perspective. This is what it was like to be Kobe in that moment. And then Shaq jumps on. And look, Shaq's pretty well known too, right? And they get that banter going. So think about ways that either with another individual or with another team or with another organisation, you can get a bit of banter, a bit of conversation going. But also think about what you can do in physical environments. So a bit like that Man United example I shared earlier. Don't leave people guessing as to where they get involved in this conversation. Wimbledon is, and we're moving outside of the world of football, but Wimbledon is, to many people, this bastion of the English summer. It's traditional. It's probably not associated always with innovation. But let me tell you, Wimbledon's digital coverage is innovative. They're ahead of their time. And anyone who followed them on Twitter would see that they used all of this best practice and more. And here, what they're doing is they're saying, look, we know people have got time to kill in the queue. Let's tell them where to join our conversation. Follow us at Wimbledon. We're not just about Middle England. We're about the new audiences and reaching them. And so we've created this, and it's not only just a prompt to where to follow us, it's a photo opportunity, and it's not just an at handle, it's a grass topiary at handle. Of course it is, because we're Wimbledon. Football, Liverpool, this is at Anfield, playing against Chelsea. You know, they've got a little bit of inventory on their hoardings, and they're putting it to really good use. They're saying, look, this is about us growing our digital community. Are you on Twitter yet? No? Follow us at LFC. Clear call to action to drive people to where you want the conversation to be. And this has been going for ages in building up to the moment that we're all about to experience, which is England hosting the Rugby World Cup. Hashtag carry them home. That conversation has burgeoned and grown massively since they started to display it. If you go to Twickenham, you see those call to action. There's no mistake about it. When you're in the crowd, you sing Sweet Chariot, that's the anthem, and you tweet hashtag carry them home, that's the social anthem. But don't leave people guessing. Make it clear this is where you want us to engage. And similarly, when you win stuff, so look, hashtag all the way for Chelsea, hashtag we are Arsenal for Arsenal when they won trophies last season. Again, don't leave it to chance. We're the club, we want to be in the heart of this. This is where you talk to us. This is where the excitement is. Come and join. On the other side of that, equally important is the balance with valuing others, and in particular valuing fans, because football, I would argue, is nothing without the fans that support it. So at the same time that you're shouting out and you're amplifying, this is the wraparound, this is the hug for the fans to make them feel valued and special. And it's summed up really by that photo, I think. Vincent Kompany and a young fan, signed ball. Could be any era, could be any sport, but that's a memento the fan will keep with him and a memory he'll cherish for many, many years. That's not scalable, but I think some of the stuff that you can do using Twitter, Vine and Periscope scales up very well. This is one, and this is from Doncaster Rovers. So this, I've shown a lot of examples from top tier of football. That's by no means, limited to Premier League clubs. This was lovely because Doncaster had had a bit of stick, I think, and people said, look, you never let us know anything, the fans, in advance. We're on the outside. And what they did is they said, well, look, next transfer, this fan is going to announce our signing. Before anyone else, he knew that they were signing that player. Fabulous, empowering, enriching for that fan. And it became a story. Henry Winter picked it up. Sky picked it up. Wayne Rooney, he passed 10 million followers a year, 6 months ago. And again, sort of recognising the globality of Twitter, he said, well, look, that moment is special to me and it's special to Man United fans, but it's not just the preserve of England fans or English fans. So he tweeted out the competition, which was effectively retweet to win a shirt, but he retweeted that in 5 or 6 languages. And notably, the bottom language, Indonesian, got the same engagement that the English tweet got. So think about how you globalise in what you do on Twitter, if that's relevant to you. And also think about votes. If you're talking about empowering fans and bringing them closer to the sport they love, give them control. In this case, BBC Match of the Day. Who do you think was man of the match? It's as simple as that. Vote, BBC Gerrard, BBC Barrett, BBC Rigg. We're curating this, we're at the heart of it, but we're giving you the power to make the decision. And that works really well as a broadcast mechanism, but it also works really well as an iconic physical emblem. And this was lovely from Football League around the Capital One Cup final. Arsenal were playing Tottenham. Sorry, I'll rewind. Chelsea were playing Tottenham. And the call to action was, look, we've got this iconic arch. We have the power to light it up. We're going to light it up based on your vote. Who do you want to win? Hashtag Spurs at Wembley. Hashtag Chelsea at Wembley. The votes came flooding in. 500,000 votes and 51-49% split, which actually went last minute the other way, and Spurs own the arch. Now, it was the only thing they owned that weekend, but they were proud of that, and rightly so. They'd driven a massive fan involvement around a massive pivotal moment in the sporting calendar. And the last area I want to talk about is exclusive access. And as I said at the start, we sometimes take this for granted. We in the sports industry, we in the football industry have access to things that many fans would give anything for. So how do you showcase that? How do you make it real on a daily basis? I love this example. It's a strange one, but I love it from Turkey, from Fenerbahce, because even though I'm not in the stadium, this single tweet makes me feel like I'm part of the stadium. It's the team announcement, but done in a special Turkish flair way.
Numara Raus. 7 numara Musa. 11 numara Dik.
You get the idea. Other ways to do this, to bring that exclusivity. I loved what the FA did around the England women's team in their highly successful World Cup campaign this summer. And the players love this too. They basically took tweets sent to #Lionesses and put them on a flag that went with the team, on the coach and into the dressing room ahead of every match they played. The players genuinely loved it because it made them feel like they were connected to home, and the fans loved it because it made them feel like they were there. And you know, even the coach, Mark Sampson, is talking in powerful ways about it. It helps to drive the spirit of the community. Take that a step further, and what Arsenal did for the FA Cup final, I think, was really powerful. Their call to action was, you know, get involved ahead of our #WeAreArsenal Cup run. Send us your tweets, and we're going to immortalise a few of those on special FA Cup shirts and in dedications on video from 5 talismanic players. And it looked like this, but it was a great, great gift to fans.
Karen Spanu, he wore a yellow t-shirt in the merry month of May. Hey Karen, thanks for your message. Let's win the cup. Ja? Ganas, ja. Yo.
Strange chap, Mesut, but I think the sentiment was fantastic. It was really well delivered, and what the proof of that almost was a week later when that shirt rocked up at the home of Karen Spanu, who won the competition. He sent a tweet, you know, delighted with it, that got loads of engagement too. And for that fan, think about it, not only did they get a shirt through the door that is signed by Mesut Ozil, but they also got a keepsake, which is the video that is the provenance that says if any fan sees that shirt, that's not just any shirt, that's a shirt that's dedicated to you in a video. And that's powerful stuff. And it's quite easy to deliver. Similarly, and getting back into the rugby theme, this was incredibly simple and incredibly effective from Wales Rugby. The last words that the team, you know, the beloved Welsh rugby team, hears before a match, they don't come from the coach, they don't come from the captain, they come from one fan selected via #finalword and immortalised at the entrance to the stadium, at the end of the player tunnel. And I know anecdotally that they offered that with 2 tickets to the Wales match at which it was displayed. And you know, Wales fans are, you know, rabid in their enthusiasm for their team. But those tickets were as nothing compared to the iconic status of being immortalised in the tunnel. And that, what, you know, 35, 40 quid and a bit of time to curate #finalword. I think there's a power way beyond the value that you spend in terms of delivering that. And just a final sort of word on exclusive access from Germany, because I think they were incredibly effective at this during the World Cup. Not just the best team on the pitch, but also, in many ways, the best team on Twitter. And it's because they took the fans on the journey with them. On the plane, you know, the plane is not downtime now. There's Wi-Fi. And I'm not saying you need to turn on the Wi-Fi and engage with fans for the entirety of an 11-hour flight to Rio. But even if just for 20 minutes, symbolically, that takes the fans on the plane with them. And that's what they did on the way to Brazil. And then they captured those moments, you know, in the changing room with Angela Merkel. That two-way conversation, similar to the England Lionesses, so that when they won the World Cup, it was very natural that almost the first thing that any of them did was to send that tweet. We're in it together, we always have been. Exclusive access just for you fans. And so that's brave, you know, break news, rich media, amplify yourself, value others, and exclusive access. I think if you're to take 2 away just to think about how you can do more, think about those last 2. And I think they're summed up really well in the final 2-minute video I want to share with you from Ian Wright around one more game, and it should explain itself.
I thought we should do something. we should do something really, really big for it. And I've never heard anybody do anything. And I thought, one last game, I want to have a football match, and I want to pick my Twitter followers to play in the football match. I wanted it to be from the Twitter followers.
One more game. One more game. Cheers.
The feeling of actually driving up to the place, getting there in the dressing room, getting onto the pitch, playing experience. And I just wanted people to have that experience without it being my mates.
Selfish. And the opening goal of the game. Mass celebrations as Team Righty take the lead just before half-time. Straight into the middle and headed off the underside of the bar. Still might be a chance, again off the line. And that is half-time. It's Team Righty 1, Team Tubes 0.
Twitter is a place where strangers can become friends if you have that intention.
So it had to be. Oh, just look at the celebrations.
And I think that with all the experiences I've had on Twitter, nothing's going to beat that.
So it's one more game, but it's not just any game. It's a game that brings fans closer together. And I think that's what Twitter does with the football world on a daily basis. This is me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Well, it was a very interesting presentation. I think there are five insights that are very powerful that we must consider when we tweet. We need to understand that the act of tweet is very easy. To tweet in a relevant way is more complicated than that. Taking that in consideration, for example, what insights of analytics Facebook can provide us football clubs to create more relevant content and more relevant action in tweet.
Well, Twitter can help. If you go to analytics.twitter.com, you can see all sorts of analytics that sit behind a tweet. And I think you're right, it's very important to look at the performance of different types of tweet. People say what performs best. I think the key is really to be analytical in the way that you approach it. So if you're thinking about doing something different for the first time, potentially around a match weekend, do that, but don't just do it and forget about it. Do it and then measure it. So, you change your tone slightly, or you do a different type of fan engagement. But then you come back to it and you say, look, I'm going to measure engagement for those 4 days using analytics.twitter.com. Have things gone in the right direction? Have people warmed to it in the way they talk about it? If the answer to both those things is yes, continue, do more, turn the dial further. If it hasn't changed the dial, if it hasn't moved things very well, then you can say, well, okay, maybe we'll try something different, but be analytical in the way that you look at what you do.
Okay. Well, we are a little short of time. Alex is going to be around here, so please approach him, ask more questions. It's important to take advantage of him, and now he's here. Alex, thank you very much for being here, and please give an applause. Thank you very much.
Cheers.